Ellie and Emma Thompson were inseparable twins growing up in the quiet town of Oakwood, Connecticut, sharing secrets and dreams under their favorite oak tree behind their childhood home. One night, as the girls celebrated their 17th birthday, with their parents, a masked intruder broke into their home, leaving their parents dead and the twins alone to face the world. 9 years later, Ellie died during childbirth, leaving her newborn son, Nathan, in the care of her twin sister, Emma, who promised to love him as her own. But when 11-year-old Nathan collapsed during a school field trip, the doctors discovered something inside his brain that would not only explain his strange abilities to recall memories he'd never experienced, but would ultimately lead to dozens of medical professionals bowing their heads in a hospital corridor for a reason that would change lives forever. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. Oakwood, Connecticut, was the kind of town where church bells could be heard from every corner, where the annual fall festival still crowned a harvest queen, and where 3 generations of families often shared Sunday dinners. Nestled between rolling hills and bisected by the languid Oakwood River, the town of just under 8,000 souls prided itself on knowing everyone's business, sometimes before they knew it themselves. The Thompson twins had been a fixture in this community since birth. Though identical in DNA, Ellie and Emma couldn't have been more different in temperament. Ellie stood an inch taller, her shoulders squared with the responsibility she'd assumed from an early age, even at 7 minutes older. She'd appointed herself Emma's eternal guardian. Her brown hair was usually pulled back in a practical ponytail, her clothing chosen for function rather than style, her gaze direct and assessing, always watching for potential threats to her more vulnerable sister. Emma, with the same chestnut hair, but often styled in soft waves, moved through the world with an artist's eye and an open heart. Where Ellie was cautious, Emma was trusting. Where Ellie planned, Emma dreamed. Yet the sisters functioned as 2 halves of a whole, their bond visible to anyone who saw them walking home from school, heads bent together in private conversation, finishing each other's sentences without a moment's hesitation. Their parents, Sarah and William Thompson, owned the town's most respected real estate agency. Their Victorian home on Maple Street, with its wraparound porch and distinctive oak tree in the backyard, had been featured 3 times in the local historical society's annual home tour. They were the family others aspired to be, successful, tight-knit, and seemingly blessed. After the murders, the community had rallied around the twins with casseroles and prayer circles, fundraisers, and offers of spare bedrooms. But as months passed, the tragedy faded from daily conversation. The twins learned quickly that life's compassion has a short attention span. Nathan Thompson grew into a thoughtful, perceptive child who inherited his mother's warm brown eyes and inexplicable ability to see beneath surfaces. By age 11, he'd become known in town for his kindness toward younger children and elderly neighbors alike. What nobody outside the family home knew was how he sometimes spoke of places he'd never visited and referenced memories that couldn't possibly be his own, memories that belonged to a mother he'd never known. The night that altered the Thompson family forever began with cake, a double-layer chocolate creation with 17 candles doubled for the twins. Sarah Thompson had spent the afternoon in the kitchen, shooing away her daughter's offers to help, insisting this birthday dinner would be special. The dining room glowed with candlelight, the good china set out on the crisp white tablecloth that only appeared for holidays and significant celebrations. "To our incredible daughters," William Thompson had said, raising his glass of sparkling cider, his eyes crinkling at the corners with pride. 17 years ago, you 2 miracles changed our lives forever. The best thing your mother and I ever did was bring you into this world." Emma had blushed, accepting the toast with characteristic grace, while Ellie squeezed her father's free hand across the table. The family of 4 had lingered over dinner, discussing college plans and summer jobs, laughing about shared memories of childhood antics. The normality of the evening would later haunt the twins, how perfectly ordinary everything had been just hours before catastrophe. At 9:37 p.m., the phone rang. Sarah answered in the kitchen while clearing dessert plates. The twins noticed how her expression changed, how she cupped her hand over the receiver and turned away, speaking in hushed tones. William excused himself, joining his wife, their heads bent close together in serious conversation. Everything okay? Ellie had called into the kitchen, already rising from her chair, her internal alarm system always vigilant. Fine, sweetheart, her father replied too quickly. Just some business. You girls go on upstairs. We'll handle the dishes tonight. The phone call lasted less than 3 minutes, but the twins would later realize it was the harbinger of everything that followed. As they climbed the stairs, Ellie glanced back to see her parents locking the front door and checking the windows, unusual behavior in a town where many still left doors unlocked overnight. The twins were playing a board game in Emma's bedroom when they heard the first crash downstairs. A shout, their father's voice, urgent and commanding, followed by their mother's scream. Ellie reacted instantly, pulling Emma to her feet and toward the closet. "Stay here," she whispered fiercely. "Don't come out no matter what you hear." "Ellie, no!" Emma clutched her sister's wrist, panic widening her eyes. "I'll be right back, I promise." Ellie gently extracted herself from her sister's grip and eased the closet door closed. What happened next came to Emma in fragments of sound. Heavy footsteps, her father's voice raised in anger, her mother pleading, then the sickening crack of gunshots, 2 in rapid succession. The silence afterward proved more terrifying than the chaos. Emma huddled among winter coats and shoeboxes, hands pressed against her mouth to stifle her breathing, tears streaming unchecked down her face. When Ellie finally opened the closet door, her face was ashen, her eyes hollow. "They're gone, Em. Mom and Dad, they're gone." The police arrived within minutes of Ellie's 911 call. Detective James Whitaker, a 20-year veteran of the Oakwood Police Department, took charge of the scene. The investigation revealed peculiarities that troubled the twins. Nothing of value appeared stolen, not Sarah's jewelry box on the dresser, not the silver candlesticks on the dining table, not even William's wallet, still containing $300 cash. Only William's home office showed signs of deliberate searching. Desk drawers pulled out, filing cabinet contents scattered across the floor. Whoever did this was looking for something specific, Detective Whitaker told them the next day, his weathered face grave beneath salt and pepper hair. "Any idea what your father might have had that someone would want badly enough to kill for?" The twins had no answers. Their father had been a respected businessman, their mother a community volunteer. The idea that they harbored secrets worth murdering for seemed incomprehensible. The months following the murders tested the sisters in ways they'd never imagined. Using the inheritance from their parents' life insurance, they remained in the family home, finishing their senior year through a combination of home tutoring and part-time classroom attendance. College plans were deferred as they learned to navigate a world suddenly devoid of parental guidance. Ellie assumed the mantle of protector with even greater intensity, handling funeral arrangements, insurance claims, and household management. Emma retreated into her art, filling canvases with dark, swirling images that expressed the grief she couldn't verbalize. Together, they survived each day, though the investigation into their parents' murder gradually cooled with no suspects identified and no arrests made. 8 years passed. The twins turned 25, their lives settling into new rhythms. Emma had found work teaching art at the local community center, while Ellie managed a small bookstore downtown. The shadow of their parents' murder never fully lifted, but they'd learned to carry the weight. Then came Michael. Ellie met him at a publishing conference in Boston, tall, with thoughtful blue eyes, and an easy smile that somehow broke through her carefully constructed defenses. For 3 months, they conducted a long-distance relationship of weekend visits and nightly phone calls. Emma watched her sister blossom, worry lines easing from her forehead, laughter returning to their home. When Ellie announced her pregnancy, though, Michael vanished. Calls went unanswered, messages unreturned. Ellie's heartbreak transformed quickly to fierce determination. "This baby will have everything it needs," she told Emma, hands protectively, cradling her still flat abdomen. "We'll be its family." The pregnancy progressed normally until the final month, when Ellie began experiencing severe headaches and elevated blood pressure. The doctor ordered bed rest, with Emma taking leave from work to care for her sister. The morning Ellie went into labor, a spring thunderstorm lashed against the windows of Oakwood Memorial Hospital, as if nature itself sensed the impending tragedy. Emma held her sister's hand through 14 hours of labor, watching Ellie grow paler and weaker with each passing hour. The delivery room filled with additional medical staff as complications mounted. After a final tremendous push brought Nathan into the world, Ellie's grip on Emma's hand slackened. "He's beautiful," she whispered, catching one glimpse of her son before her eyes fluttered closed. "Emma, find the box. They're still looking." The medical team worked desperately to stop the hemorrhaging, but Ellie slipped away despite their efforts. In the terrible quiet that followed, a nurse placed the newborn in Emma's arms. Looking down at his tiny face, so like her sister's, Emma made a vow through her tears. "I'll protect him with my life," she promised. "I'll give him enough love for both of us." Though friends urged her to start fresh elsewhere, Emma refused to leave Oakwood. The family home, with its oak tree and wraparound porch, became Nathan's inheritance, the place where she would tell him stories of his mother, where Ellie's presence still lingered in family photographs and cherished mementos. Emma would raise her nephew in the only home she'd ever known, holding tight to her sister's final words and wondering what box Ellie had meant and who might still be looking for it after all these years. Nathan Thompson celebrated his 11th birthday with chocolate cupcakes in his 5th grade classroom, wearing a paper crown decorated by his classmates and beaming with the unself-conscious joy that would soon become a rarity. Emma watched from the doorway of room 23, her heart swelling with pride and that familiar pang of sadness that Ellie wasn't beside her to witness this milestone. The boy had grown into the spitting image of his mother. Same warm brown eyes, same dimple in his left cheek when he smiled, same thoughtful tilt of the head when considering a question. "He's certainly popular," a deep voice commented beside her. Emma turned to find Nathan's teacher, Mr. Reynolds, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed over his chest as he observed the celebration. "He makes friends easily," Emma agreed. "Always has." Wiry Michael Reynolds had joined the Oakwood Elementary faculty just that year, bringing with him glowing references from a prestigious Boston private school and teaching methods that quickly earned him the admiration of students and parents alike. In his mid-30s, with sandy hair perpetually falling across his forehead and wire-rimmed glasses that gave him a scholarly appearance, he'd become Nathan's favorite teacher within weeks. "He mentioned you're working on a family history project. At home?" Michael asked. Emma nodded. "He's become obsessed with our family tree lately, asking questions about grandparents, great-grandparents, the whole Thompson lineage." What she didn't share was how Nathan's interest had taken an unsettling turn in recent months. He'd begun describing family vacations the Thompsons had taken before his birth, recounting details about Sarah and William that Emma had never told him. When questioned, he would shrug and say, "I just know, that's all." Emma had initially attributed it to overheard conversations or photographs he'd studied, but some details were too specific, too private for such explanations. 2 weeks after the birthday celebration, Nathan burst into the kitchen after school, face flushed with excitement. "Aunt Emma, I found something in the attic." In his hands was a leather-bound photo album Emma hadn't seen in years. "I was looking for Dad's baseball cards you said might be up there," Nathan explained, carefully laying the album on the kitchen table. "Look at this." He flipped to a page showing a much younger William Thompson shaking hands with another man in front of what appeared to be a newly opened real estate office. The men stood beneath a banner reading Thompson and Wilson Realty Grand Opening. "Who's that with Grandpa?" Nathan asked, pointing to the second man. Emma frowned, studying the photograph. "That must be James Wilson, Dad's first business partner. They started the agency together, but Mr. Wilson left the business before I was born. Dad never talked about him much." Nathan's finger traced the outline of Wilson's face, his expression strangely troubled. "He's the one who wants the box," he murmured. Emma's hand froze midway to turning the page. "What did you say?" The boy blinked, looking momentarily confused. "I don't know. Just something I thought." He shrugged and continued flipping through the album. But Emma felt a chill race down her spine. Ellie's final words echoed in her memory. "Find the box. They're still looking." That evening, after tucking Nathan into bed, Emma pulled out her sister's old journals, searching for any mention of James Wilson or a mysterious box. She found nothing concrete, only a brief notation from their teenage years, where Ellie had written about overhearing an argument between their father and JW about missing documents. Not enough to form any conclusions, but enough to keep Emma awake, wondering what connection might exist between their parents' murder and this long-forgotten business partner. As autumn progressed, two significant developments occurred in the Thompson household. First, Emma's casual conversations with Michael Reynolds evolved into coffee after school, then dinner at the local Italian restaurant, then movie nights after Nathan had gone to bed. She hadn't expected to find romance with her nephew's teacher, but Michael's quiet intelligence and genuine interest in both her and Nathan broke through defenses she hadn't realized she'd built after years of focusing solely on raising her sister's child. "He's different," Emma confided to her best friend Lauren over lunch. "He actually listens, and you should see him with Nathan. They have this immediate connection, like they've known each other forever." The second development was more troubling. Twice in October, Emma returned home to find subtle signs of intrusion. A desk drawer not quite closed, family photos rearranged, the attic access door ajar when she was certain she'd left it locked. Nothing was ever taken, but the violations left her uneasy enough to install a security system, something she'd never felt necessary in Oakwood before. Meanwhile, Nathan began experiencing headaches, mild at first, then increasingly severe. Emma attributed them to eye strain from reading, then to seasonal allergies. When nosebleeds accompanied the headaches, she finally scheduled a doctor's appointment, only to have Nathan insist he felt fine the morning they were due to visit the pediatrician. "Kids get headaches, Emma," Dr. Martin reassured her after finding nothing concerning in Nathan's examination. "Keep an eye on it, but try not to worry too much." 2 weeks later, Oakwood Elementary's 5th grade classes took their annual field trip to the County Historical Museum. Michael had asked Emma to chaperone, but a deadline at the community center kept her at work. She kissed Nathan goodbye that morning with the usual reminders about staying with his group and listening to his teacher. At 1:47 p.m., her phone rang with Michael's number. "Emma, I need you to stay calm." His voice was steady but urgent. "Nathan collapsed at the museum. We're in an ambulance headed to Oakwood Memorial. Meet us there." The next hours passed in a blur of hospital corridors, medical terminology, and mounting fear. Nathan had suffered a grand mal seizure while examining a display of Native American artifacts. CT scans revealed what the emergency room doctor gently described as a mass in the temporal lobe. His expression grave as he recommended immediate transfer to Boston Children's Hospital for more specialized care. Emma sat beside Nathan's hospital bed that night, her nephew sedated after additional tests, Michael keeping vigil in the chair beside her. Neither spoke much, the beeping of monitors and the squeak of nurses' shoes in the hallway the only soundtrack to their shared fear. Dr. Eleanor Chen arrived the next morning, her petite frame and youthful appearance belied by the authority in her voice as she introduced herself as the head of pediatric neurology. She wasted no time with platitudes. "The tumor is located in a particularly complex area of Nathan's brain," she explained, showing them imaging scans on her tablet. "Its position in the temporal lobe explains some symptoms you may have noticed. Headaches, certainly, but possibly also unusual memory phenomena or déjà vu experiences." Emma's hands trembled as she clutched Nathan's limp fingers. "What are you saying?" "The location may explain why Nathan sometimes recalls things he couldn't possibly know," Dr. Chen said. "The temporal lobe processes memory and emotional responses. Pressure from the tumor could create false memory impressions or unusual connections in his brain." "Can you remove it?" Michael asked, his arm steady around Emma's shoulders. Dr. Chen's hesitation told them everything before she spoke. "I wish I could give you better news. Given the size, location, and apparent rate of growth, this type of tumor is generally considered inoperable. With treatment, radiation, chemotherapy, we might slow its progression. But I need you to understand that Nathan's condition is terminal. We're looking at months, not years." The world seemed to tilt on its axis as Emma struggled to comprehend the doctor's words. Terminal. Months, not years. Her beautiful, bright-eyed boy with his mother's dimple and boundless curiosity. "There must be some mistake," she whispered. He was fine just last week. These tumors can grow silently for some time before symptoms appear, Dr. Chen explained gently. I've ordered additional tests, but I wanted to be honest with you from the start. Later that afternoon, as Nathan slept, Emma stood at the hospital window, watching darkness settle over Boston. Michael's solid presence beside her was the only thing keeping her upright. How would she tell Nathan? How could she bear to lose him, too? After everything, the universe couldn't be this cruel to take away her sister and now her sister's only child. I can't lose him, she whispered, not realizing she'd spoken aloud until Michael's arms encircled her. You're not alone this time, he murmured against her hair. Whatever happens, I'm right here with you both. The sterile white walls of Boston Children's Hospital became a second home in the weeks following Nathan's diagnosis. Emma quickly learned the rhythms of the place, which nurses would bend visitation rules, which cafeteria items were actually edible, how to navigate the labyrinthine corridors between neurology, oncology, and the pediatric intensive care unit. She learned medical terminology she'd never wanted to know: glioblastoma, blood-brain barrier, stereotactic radiosurgery. She filled legal pads with notes during each doctor's visit, researched clinical trials in the middle of the night, and maintained an outwardly calm demeanor that belied her inner terror. You're remarkable, Michael told her one evening after bringing dinner to Nathan's room while Emma reviewed pathology reports. Most people would have fallen apart by now. She glanced at Nathan, who had finally fallen asleep after a particularly rough day of tests. I don't have that luxury, she said simply. He needs me to be strong. A steady stream of specialists paraded through Nathan's room, each bringing different perspectives but arriving at the same grim conclusion. The tumor, nestled deep in his brain's temporal lobe, was aggressive and growing rapidly. Traditional treatments might buy time, months perhaps, but offered no hope for a cure. One neurosurgeon, more blunt than his colleagues, had laid it out starkly. Operating would kill him faster than the tumor. Emma refused to accept this verdict. She sought fourth and fifth opinions, researched experimental procedures not covered by insurance, and contacted specialists across the country. The Thompson home was remortgaged, her retirement account emptied. When word spread through Oakwood about Nathan's condition, the community rallied with fundraisers, bake sales, charity car washes, a 5K race organized by Nathan's classmates. But the harsh reality of American healthcare meant even their generosity couldn't keep pace with mounting medical bills. Through it all, Nathan exhibited a calmness that sometimes unsettled the adults around him. He rarely complained about pain, asked thoughtful questions during doctor visits, and seemed more concerned with Emma's well-being than his own. It's okay, Aunt Emma, he said one afternoon, finding her crying in the hospital chapel. Everyone has to go sometime. I'm just going a little sooner than we thought. She gathered him close, this child with an old soul, wondering how Ellie had created someone so wise. We're not giving up, she whispered fiercely. Not ever. Dr. Chen had encouraged them to maintain as much normalcy as possible, so Emma arranged for Nathan to continue schoolwork from his hospital bed. Michael visited daily, bringing assignments and messages from classmates. His fifth-grade class had designated a stuffed bear as Nathan's stand-in, placing it at his desk and including it in all class activities. Each evening, Michael would show Nathan photos of the bear's adventures, science experiments, art projects, playground games, bringing small moments of joy to the hospital room. As November turned to December, Michael's presence became constant. He took leave from teaching to help Emma navigate the medical maze, sleeping in the uncomfortable recliner beside Nathan's bed when Emma finally succumbed to exhaustion. When they returned to Oakwood for brief visits between treatments, Michael stayed in the guest room, cooking meals, handling laundry, and fielding the well-meaning but overwhelming stream of visitors and casseroles. You don't have to do all this, Emma told him one evening after he'd spent hours hanging Christmas lights around Nathan's bedroom window. This isn't what you signed up for when you asked me to dinner. Michael's hands stilled on the strand of lights. I'm exactly where I want to be, he said quietly, with both of you. As December progressed, so did Nathan's symptoms. The hair he'd once been so proud of, thick and chestnut-colored like his mother's, fell out in clumps from radiation treatments. Weight dropped from his already slender frame, leaving his face gaunt and his hospital gown hanging loosely from bony shoulders. Seizures increased in frequency, robbing him of consciousness and leaving him disoriented and exhausted in their wake. Yet even as his body weakened, Nathan's connection to memories and knowledge he shouldn't possess intensified. During clear moments between treatments, he would describe in vivid detail places Ellie had visited before his birth, a trip to the Grand Canyon when the twins were 12, the layout of their college dormitory, the exact location of a hidden fort in the woods behind their childhood home. He spoke of these places not as stories he'd heard, but as experiences he'd lived. "How do you know these things?" Emma asked once, after he'd accurately described the pattern of her mother's favorite china dishes that had been packed away in the attic since Sarah's death. Nathan shrugged. "I just remember," he said simply. One snowy afternoon in mid-December, while Dr. Chen discussed radiation adjustments with Emma in the hallway, a nurse found Nathan methodically drawing in a sketchbook Michael had brought him. The detailed pencil drawing showed an oak tree with peculiar markings on its trunk and what appeared to be a metal box partially buried among its roots. "That's really good," the nurse commented. "Is that a special tree from home?" Nathan nodded, without looking up. "It's where Mom hid Grandpa's box," he said matter-of-factly, "the one the bad men are looking for." The nurse mentioned the conversation to Emma later that day, triggering a memory of the photo album Nathan had found, of his strange comment about James Wilson wanting the box. When Emma asked Nathan about the drawing, he explained with unsettling clarity that the oak tree behind their house contained a hollow space just above the root line, accessible only if you knew the exact spot to press on the trunk. "Mom put Grandpa's important papers there the night of the birthday party," he said. She heard them arguing on the phone. Emma felt a chill that had nothing to do with the hospital's air conditioning. "Who was arguing, Nathan?" "Grandpa and his business friend," he replied, "the one who sent the man with the gun." That evening, after Nathan had fallen asleep, Emma shared the conversation with Michael. "It's impossible," she whispered. "He knows things about that night that I've never told him, things even I didn't know." Michael's expression grew troubled. "The doctor said the tumor could cause false memories or unusual connections," he began, but Emma shook her head. "This is different. He's describing real events, real places, things only Ellie would know." She hesitated. "Michael, what if somehow Nathan has access to Ellie's memories? What if that's what's happening?" Before Michael could respond, a soft knock at the door interrupted them. A volunteer stood in the doorway holding a large manila envelope. "Sorry to disturb you, but this was delivered for Nathan. The front desk asked me to bring it up." The envelope contained a handmade get well card, clearly crafted by children, with "We miss you," Nathan spelled out in glitter glue across the front. As Emma opened it, a photograph slipped out and fluttered to the floor. Michael bent to retrieve it, then froze, staring at the image in his hand. "What is it?" Emma asked. Michael wordlessly handed her the photograph. It showed a much younger Michael, arm around a smiling Ellie, standing in front of what appeared to be a Boston bookstore. On the back, written in Ellie's familiar handwriting, "Michael and me, Trident Books reading, March 2016. Emma's hand trembled as she looked from the photograph to Michael's face, now drained of color. "You knew my sister," she said flatly. "You knew Ellie." "Emma, I can explain. You knew her." The realization crashed over her in waves. "You're him. You're the one who left her when she got pregnant. Nathan's father." Michael sank into the chair beside Nathan's bed, removing his glasses to press his palms against his eyes. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear to God, Emma, I didn't know she was pregnant. I never would have." "Get out." Emma's voice was ice. "Get out right now." "Please, let me explain." "What's to explain? You abandoned my sister when she needed you, and now you've been lying to me, to us, for months." Her voice rose despite her efforts to keep quiet for Nathan's sake. "Was this all some sick game to you? Getting close to your son without telling anyone who you really are?" "No." Michael's face crumpled. I didn't know Nathan was mine until I met him. Saw how much he looked like my brother. By then, I'd already fallen for you. Emma, I was trying to figure out how to tell you, but then he got sick and the timing never seemed right. The timing? Emma laughed bitterly. My nephew is dying and you thought what, that I'd be too distracted to be angry when I found out you'd been lying this whole time? He's not just your nephew, Michael said quietly. He's my son. For several tense moments, they stared at each other across Nathan's hospital bed, the beeping monitors the only sound in the room. Finally, Emma spoke, her voice controlled but trembling with rage. I want you to leave this hospital and I don't want you to come back. Whatever your reasons, whatever your excuses, I can't trust you now. Nathan needs people around him who are honest, who put him first. Emma, please go now before I call security. After Michael left, Emma sank into the chair beside Nathan's bed, the photograph still clutched in her hand. The boy slept on, unaware of the confrontation that had just occurred, his breathing shallow but steady. Emma studied his face, the shape of his eyebrows, the curve of his jaw, seeing now the clear resemblance to Michael that she'd somehow missed before. Your father, she whispered to the sleeping child, is a liar. Just like your mother always said. The next morning, Emma awoke to find Nathan studying her with clear, alert eyes. One of his good days, when the tumor granted temporary reprieve from pain and confusion. He came back for us, Nathan said without preamble. Emma straightened in, her chair, wincing at the crick in her neck. Who came back? Dad, he replied. He didn't know about me before. He would have stayed if he knew. Emma's breath caught. Nathan, were you awake last night? The boy shook his head. No, but I know things sometimes. He reached for her hand. Don't be mad at him, Aunt Emma. Mom wouldn't want you to be alone. Before Emma could formulate a response, Dr. Chen arrived for morning rounds, accompanied by a nurse and an unfamiliar man in a rumpled suit. The doctor's expression was grave as she introduced the newcomer. Emma, this is James Whitaker. He's a retired detective who's been trying to reach you. Emma's confusion must have shown on her face because the man stepped forward, offering a business card. We've met before, Ms. Thompson. Many years ago, I investigated your parents' murder. Recognition dawned as Emma studied the weathered face, now lined with age, but still bearing the same shrewd blue eyes she remembered from the worst days of her life. Detective Whitaker. But why? I never stopped working your parents' case, he explained, glancing at Nathan. Even after retirement, and I believe I've finally made a breakthrough, but it could put you both in danger. Is there somewhere we can speak privately, Doctor? Dr. Chen offered her office, and after ensuring Nathan was comfortable with the nurse, Emma followed the detective down the hospital corridor, her mind racing. In the privacy of the small office, Whitaker wasted no time with pleasantries. Your parents were killed because your father discovered financial irregularities at his real estate agency, he began, pulling documents from a worn leather briefcase. Specifically, evidence that his former business partner, James Wilson, had been using the company to launder money for organized crime figures from Boston. Emma sank into a chair, struggling to process this information. My father's first partner, but they dissolved their business relationship decades ago. On paper, yes, Whitaker replied, but Wilson maintained silent financial interests in several Thompson properties. When your father discovered discrepancies in the accounting and confronted Wilson, he signed his own death warrant. Whitaker spread several photographs across the desk, surveillance images of a silver-haired man Emma faintly recognized from childhood memories. Wilson arranged the hit, but what he really wanted was to recover documents your father had compiled proving the money laundering operation. The box, Emma whispered. That's what Ellie meant. Whitaker's eyebrows rose. Your sister mentioned a box, her last words. She told me to find the box, that they were still looking. Emma hesitated, then shared Nathan's strange knowledge of the oak tree hiding place and his drawing of the metal container. I thought it was just the tumor causing confusion. But what if Ellie actually hid something there? The detective's expression, grew increasingly troubled as she spoke. If Wilson believes those documents still exist, and if he thinks your nephew might know where they are. He didn't need to finish the sentence. The implication was clear. Nathan might be in danger from forces far more immediate than his illness. What do we do? Emma asked, fear clutching at her throat. First, we find those documents, Whitaker said firmly. Then we use them to finally bring Wilson to justice. I've spent 15 years building a case against him, but without hard evidence, the district attorney won't move forward. As they prepared to return to Nathan's room, a commotion in the hallway caught their attention. Running toward the source of the noise, Emma found Michael in heated conversation with hospital security outside Nathan's door. Sir, as I've explained, you're not on the approved visitors list anymore, a guard was saying. I need to see him, Michael insisted, his normally composed demeanor cracking. It's urgent. Michael, Emma called, approaching cautiously. What's happening? He turned to her, face pale with urgency. Emma, thank God. Someone broke into my apartment last night. They took my laptop, my files, anything connected to you or Nathan. And this morning, I received this. He thrust his phone toward her, displaying a text message. Stay away from the boy, or you'll both join his mother. Detective Whitaker stepped forward, taking the phone and studying the message. Wilson, he muttered. He knows we're getting close. He turned to Emma. We need to move quickly. Is there anyone who can take us to your house in Oakwood? We need to find what's hidden in that tree before Wilson's people do. Emma looked from the detective to Michael, conflict warring on her face. Finally, she made a decision. Michael knows the house, she said reluctantly. He can take you there. Turning to Michael, she added, this doesn't mean I forgive you, but Nathan's safety comes first. Find what's in that tree and bring it back here. As Michael and Whitaker prepared to leave, Emma returned to Nathan's room, her mind reeling from the morning's revelations. The quiet boy in the hospital bed was at the center of a storm involving murder, money laundering, family secrets, and a father he'd never known. How much more complicated could their situation become? The answer came that afternoon when Dr. Chen returned with results from Nathan's latest brain scan. The tumor had grown significantly in just 2 weeks, pressing dangerously on critical structures. We're running out of time, the doctor said gently. Days, maybe weeks at most. I'm so sorry, Emma. Nathan, fully awake now and insistent on being included in all discussions about his condition, reached for Emma's hand. It's okay, he said with that eerie calmness. I'm not afraid. But as Emma looked into his eyes so like Ellie's, so like Michael's, she saw something that frightened her more than any tumor. Knowledge. Her nephew knew he was dying, had accepted it with a grace that no 11-year-old should possess. There's still hope, she insisted, gripping his thin fingers. Michael and Detective Whitaker are looking for evidence that might help us understand what happened to your grandparents. Maybe there's something in those documents about experimental treatments or specialists we haven't tried yet. Nathan's smile was gentle, so adult in his child's face. The box isn't about medicine, Aunt Emma. It's about justice. It's what Mom wanted us to find all along. As twilight settled over Boston, Emma sat beside Nathan's bed, reading from his favorite book while he drifted in and out of sleep. Her phone vibrated with an incoming text from Michael. Found it. Coming back now. Keep Nathan safe. She exhaled slowly, relief mingling with apprehension. Whatever secrets that box contained, they'd waited 15 years to be revealed. She only hoped Nathan would still be with them when the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place. The winter storm that had threatened all day finally descended on Boston shortly after midnight, wrapping the hospital in swirling sheets of snow and ice. Emma dozed fitfully in the recliner beside Nathan's bed, jerking awake at every noise in the corridor, every ping from her silent phone. Michael and Detective Whitaker should have returned hours ago. What if something had happened? What if Wilson's people had intercepted them? The night stretched endlessly, her imagination conjuring increasingly dire scenarios with each passing hour. Nathan's condition had deteriorated rapidly after Dr. Chen's grim update. The increased pressure in his brain necessitated higher doses of steroids and pain medication, leaving him drifting in and out of consciousness, lucid moments growing briefer and further apart. During one such interval shortly before dawn, he opened his eyes and fixed Emma with a clear gaze. "They're coming," he whispered, voice raspy from disuse. "They found what Mom hid." Emma leaned forward, smoothing damp hair from his forehead. "Who's coming, sweetie?" "Dad and the detective," he replied. "They have Grandpa's box." His eyes drifted closed again. "Be careful, the other man knows too." A chill that had nothing to do with the hospital's air conditioning settled over Emma. Nathan's uncanny knowledge had proven accurate too many times to dismiss. She reached for her phone to call Michael, then froze at the sound of footsteps approaching the room, too heavy and purposeful for the night nurse's usual quiet rounds. Emma eased out of her chair and moved toward the door, positioning herself between the entrance and Nathan's bed. Her heart hammered against her ribs as the footsteps slowed outside room 427. The door handle turned slowly. Michael burst through the doorway, snow crusting his hair and shoulders, face pinched with exhaustion and urgency. Detective Whitaker followed close behind, clutching a weathered metal lockbox to his chest. "Thank God," Emma breathed, knees weak with relief. "What happened? I've been trying to reach you for hours." "Roads were terrible," Michael explained, in a hushed voice, eyes immediately seeking Nathan's sleeping form. "And we had to take evasive measures. We're pretty sure we were followed from Oakwood." Whitaker set the box on the small table in the corner of the room, producing a set of small tools from his pocket. "We need to open this now and secure the contents. Wilson knows we have it. His men tore apart half the yard searching for it after we left." Emma glanced nervously at Nathan. "Should we move somewhere else? Let him rest." "No time," Whitaker replied grimly, already working on the lock. "And to be frank, I don't want to separate from either of you right now. Safety in numbers." The lockbox surrendered with a rusty click after several tense minutes of manipulation. Whitaker carefully raised the lid to reveal a stack of documents, a small leather journal, and several USB drives sealed in plastic bags. As he began removing the contents, Michael moved to stand beside Emma, maintaining a respectful distance, but close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his snow-dampened coat. "How did you find it?" she whispered. "Exactly where Nathan's drawing showed," Michael replied, equal parts awe and confusion in his voice. "Hidden compartment in the oak tree, right above the root line. There's no way he could have known that spot. The opening was almost invisible, grown over with bark. I wouldn't have found it without his detailed instructions." For the next hour, while Nathan slept and the winter storm raged outside, the three adults pored over William Thompson's meticulous records. The documents revealed a sophisticated money laundering operation spanning 3 decades, with James Wilson at its center. Spreadsheets detailed millions moved through seemingly legitimate real estate deals, with connections to organized crime figures in Boston, Providence, and New York. Most damning was William's personal journal, documenting conversations and confrontations with Wilson after discovering the scheme. "The last entry was dated the day before your parents were killed," Whitaker noted, carefully turning pages in the journal. "William planned to take everything to the FBI the following Monday. Wilson must have found out somehow." Emma's fingers traced her father's handwriting, tears blurring her vision. "All these years we never knew why they died, trying to do the right thing." Michael, who had been examining one of the USB drives on his laptop, suddenly straightened. "There's more," he said, voice tight with tension. "William wasn't just tracking the money laundering. He found evidence that Wilson was embezzling from a trust fund, the Thompson Family Trust." "What trust fund?" Emma asked, bewildered. "We never had family money beyond the real estate business." Michael turned the laptop so Emma could see the documents. "According to this, your grandfather established a significant trust before his death. The assets were to be managed by Wilson until the twins, you and Ellie, turned 30, then transferred to your control. We're talking millions, Emma. Money that rightfully belongs to you and to Nathan as Ellie's heir." The revelation settled over the room like a physical weight. Emma struggled to process the implications, not just her parents' murder, but the systematic theft of their inheritance, the years of financial struggle that might have been unnecessary, the medical treatments for Nathan they couldn't afford. "Wilson killed my parents for this," she said slowly. "He's been stealing our family's money for years." Her gaze drifted to Nathan's bed, where the boy slept, oblivious to the storm of revelations surrounding him. Detective Whitaker carefully returned the documents to the box. "This is more than enough to bring Wilson down for good. Financial crimes, conspiracy, and with some additional work, 2 counts of homicide. I need to get these to the FBI field office immediately." "What about Nathan? What about us?" Emma asked. "If Wilson knows we have the evidence, I've already called in some favors," Whitaker assured her. "There will be officers stationed outside this room within the hour. You'll have round-the-clock protection until Wilson is in custody." As Whitaker prepared to leave with the documents, a nurse appeared in the doorway. "Ms. Thompson, Dr. Chen would like to see you. She's just finished reviewing the latest test results." Emma exchanged a glance with Michael, reluctant to leave Nathan even for a moment. "I'll stay with him," Michael promised. "He won't be alone." Dr. Chen waited in her office, expression grave as Emma entered. Without preamble, she gestured to the brain scans illuminated on her computer screen. "Nathan's condition is accelerating more rapidly than we anticipated," she began, her professional composure cracking slightly. "The tumor has begun affecting his brainstem. I'm so sorry, Emma, but we're looking at days now, not weeks." The world seemed to narrow to a painful pinpoint as Emma struggled to breathe. "Isn't there anything at all we can try? Some experimental treatment? Something overseas, maybe?" Dr. Chen shook her head gently. "We've explored every possible avenue. At this stage, our focus needs to shift to keeping him comfortable and managing his symptoms as best we can." "He's only 11, Emma whispered, the enormity of loss threatening to crush her. "He's just a little boy." "I know," Dr. Chen said softly. "And I wish medical science had better answers. But what we can do is ensure these final days are peaceful, that he's surrounded by love, that he doesn't suffer." When Emma returned to Nathan's room, she found him awake, engaged in quiet conversation with Michael. Something in their shared profile, the same slope of the nose, the same shaped earlobes, made her heart constrict. Father and son together for such a brief time, with no knowledge of their connection until it was almost too late. "Aunt Emma," Nathan called, his voice stronger than it had been in days. "Dr. Chen told you, didn't she? About the time?" She moved to his bedside, taking his thin hand in hers. "Yes, sweetheart. She did." Nathan nodded thoughtfully. "I want to donate my organs," he said with surprising clarity. "When it's time." Emma's breath caught. "Nathan, I've been reading about it," he continued, gesturing to the tablet beside his bed. "Kids like me can help lots of other kids. My heart, my kidneys, my liver, they're all still good. Just my brain that's broken." Michael made a small, choked sound from the other side of the bed. Emma struggled to maintain composure as she squeezed Nathan's hand. "That's an incredibly generous thought," she managed. "But it's not something you need to worry about right now." "It is, though," Nathan insisted with surprising force. "I've been thinking about it a lot. I want to help other kids like me." His gaze shifted momentarily, focusing on something only he could see. "Especially the others like me." Before Emma could question this curious phrasing, Dr. Chen returned with a tall, distinguished man in surgical scrubs, whom she introduced as Dr. Reeves, head of transplant services. Nathan buzzed the nurse's station, asking to speak with our transplant team, Dr. Chen explained. "He's been quite insistent." Dr. Reeves approached Nathan's bedside with the respectful manner of someone who regularly spoke with children facing mortality. "The nurses tell me you're interested in organ donation, young man." Nathan nodded firmly. "I want to help other kids when I'm gone. Is that possible? Even with my cancer?" "Your brain tumor doesn't affect the viability of your other organs, Dr. For," Reeves confirmed. "And yes, donation would be possible, but it's a decision that requires careful consideration and family consent." "I've considered it," Nathan said with that uncanny adult inflection. "And I want to do it." He turned to Emma, eyes pleading. Please, Aunt Emma, it's important. Something in his gaze, a certainty beyond his years, made Emma hesitate to dismiss the request. Can we have some information about the process? She asked Dr. Reeves. To discuss as a family. As the doctor explained organ donation protocols, Nathan listened with intense focus, asking surprisingly sophisticated questions about recipient matching and timing of procedures. When Dr. Reeves departed, leaving pamphlets and consent forms, for their consideration, Nathan turned to Emma and Michael with unexpected animation. "There's something else," he said urgently. "Something important I need to tell you both." Emma perched on the edge of his bed. "What is it, sweetie?" I know, I have a brother," he said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "Not just any brother, an identical twin, a boy exactly like me." Michael and Emma exchanged concerned glances. "Nathan," Michael began gently, "you don't have a brother. You were Ellie's only child." "No," Nathan insisted, frustration evident. "I've seen him in my dreams, in my head. He looks exactly like me. And he's sick too with the same thing I have. He needs a kidney and part of a liver. My kidney and my liver." Emma pressed a palm to his forehead, finding it cool. This wasn't fever-induced delirium. "Nathan, honey, that's not possible. I was there when you were born. There was only one baby." "Check the records," Nathan pleaded. "Please, I know he exists. I can feel him." To placate him, Dr. Chen agreed to review Ellie's obstetrical records from Oakwood Memorial. The results, delivered an hour later, sent a shockwave through the room. "According to these ultrasound reports," Dr. Chen said slowly, "Ellie was indeed carrying twins during her pregnancy. There are clear images of two distinct fetuses." Emma stared at the medical records in disbelief. "That's impossible. There was only one baby delivered. I was there the entire time." Dr. Chen frowned, flipping through pages. "The delivery notes only reference one infant male, 6 pounds 7 ounces, but the prenatal records clearly show twins." She looked up, troubled. "This is unusual. I'll need to make some inquiries." While Dr. Chen sought answers, Emma sat beside Nathan, her mind reeling. "You really believe you have a twin brother?" she asked softly. Nathan nodded, eyes fever-bright, with conviction. "His name is Oliver. He's in a hospital in Boston, too, and he needs my help, Aunt Emma. That's why my organs are so important. He needs parts of me to live." Michael, who had been silently processing this stunning development, suddenly straightened. Dr. Chen mentioned a pediatric hospital in Boston with a child matching Nathan's rare blood type when we were discussing transfusion options last week. What if... He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. The implications hung in the air, simultaneously impossible and undeniable. Emma's phone rang, interrupting the tense silence. Detective Whitaker, his voice tight with urgency. "Emma, listen, carefully. Wilson's been tipped off that we have the evidence. He's gone underground, but we have credible intelligence that he sent someone to the hospital. You need to alert security immediately." Emma's blood ran cold. "Someone's coming here now?" "We have officers en route, but they're delayed by the storm. Anyone enters that room who isn't hospital staff, you call security immediately, understand?" As Emma hung up, the hospital intercom crackled to life. "Code Silver, 4th floor. Code Silver, 4th floor." The hospital's designation for an armed intruder. Michael moved swiftly to the door, locking it and dragging a chair beneath the handle. "Stay with Nathan," he instructed Emma, voice low and urgent. "I'll try to find security." "No," Emma grabbed his arm. "Don't leave us, please." The sound of running footsteps in the hallway, shouts, and the crash of equipment being overturned froze them in place. Through the door's small window, Emma glimpsed hospital staff rushing in the opposite direction, evacuating patients from nearby rooms. The footsteps grew louder, slowing as they approached room 427. Nathan's monitor began beeping rapidly as his heart rate increased. "He's coming," the boy whispered, eyes wide with fear. "Wilson's man is coming for the box." As the door handle rattled violently against the lock, Michael positioned himself between the entrance and Nathan's bed. Emma clutching her nephew's hand, Both adults desperately scanned the room for anything that might serve as a weapon against whoever waited on the other side. The door to room 427 shuddered against its hinges as someone threw their weight against it from the hallway. The chair Michael had wedged beneath the handle scraped across linoleum but held firm. Emma pulled Nathan's emergency call button repeatedly, though the usual quick response from the nurses' station had been replaced by the controlled chaos of the Code Silver protocol unfolding throughout the floor. "Is there another way out?" Michael whispered urgently, scanning the room for options. Emma shook her head. "Just the bathroom, and it's windowless." Nathan clutched Emma's hand, his face pale but remarkably composed for a child facing not just terminal illness, but now immediate danger. "He's looking for the box," he said softly. "He thinks it's still here." The pounding at the door ceased abruptly, followed by an ominous silence. Then came a new sound, the metallic scrape of something being inserted into the lock. Michael cast about desperately for anything to use as a weapon, finally grabbing the metal IV pole from beside Nathan's bed, disconnecting the tubes with careful precision to avoid triggering alarms. "When he comes through that door," Michael instructed Emma in a low, steady voice, "take Nathan into the bathroom. Lock yourselves in and call 911 again." Emma's protest died on her lips as the lock mechanism clicked. The door began to open slowly, the chair legs screeching across the floor as they gave way. A man's hand appeared at the edge of the door, then a shoulder as he forced his way through the narrow opening. Michael raised the IV pole like a baseball bat, prepared to swing. But before the intruder could fully enter, a blur of blue scrubs barreled into him from the hallway, driving him to the ground with surprising force. The sounds of struggle, grunts, the thud of fists connecting with flesh, furniture overturning, filled the doorway as Michael rushed forward to help. Emma caught a glimpse of Dr. Chen, her small frame belying remarkable strength as she grappled with a man nearly twice her size. The intruder's hand emerged from his jacket, glinting metal catching the fluorescent lights. A gun. Michael swung the IV pole without hesitation, connecting with the man's wrist. The weapon clattered across the floor as hospital security finally arrived, subduing the intruder with practiced efficiency. In the stunned silence that followed, Emma held Nathan tightly against her chest, his thin body trembling. Dr. Chen staggered, to her feet, lab coat torn, a darkening bruise forming along her cheekbone. "Are you all right?" she asked, her usual professional composure momentarily fractured as she rushed to Nathan's bedside. "You saved us," Emma whispered, unable to reconcile the petite neurologist with the fierce protector who had just tackled an armed man. "Krav Maga," Dr. Chen replied with a small, tight smile. 3 years training. Never thought I'd use it at work." She turned her attention to Nathan, whose monitors showed elevated heart rate and blood pressure. "We need to get him stabilized. This kind of stress could accelerate the pressure buildup." As security personnel removed the still struggling intruder, Detective Whitaker burst into the room, joined by 2 uniformed officers. His weathered face registered first relief, then concern, as he took in the scene. "Wilson sent his enforcer," Whitaker explained grimly, holstering his weapon. "Dan Keller, known associate suspected in at least 3 homicides. We've been trying to connect him to Wilson for years." He glanced at Dr. Chen with newfound respect. "Looks like you did our job for us, Doctor." Security measures intensified in the aftermath. 2 officers remained stationed outside Nathan's door, with additional personnel monitoring hospital entrances. Dr. Chen ordered a medical team to prepare for emergency intervention should Nathan's condition deteriorate further from the stress. Through it all, the boy remained strangely calm, as if the immediate danger had somehow steadied him when his own mortality could not. "I knew you'd protect us," he told Dr. Chen as she examined him. "Just like you'll help me protect Oliver." The doctor's hand stilled on her stethoscope. "Nathan, we've been making inquiries about the possibility of a twin. There's something you should know." She glanced at Emma, seeking permission to continue. Emma nodded, though dread pooled in her stomach. "What have you found?" "There is a patient at Boston Children's named Oliver Hayes," Dr. Chen confirmed quietly. "He's 11 years old and currently in late-stage treatment for the same type of brain tumor Nathan has. The coincidence seemed remarkable enough that I requested additional information. She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. His blood type is identical to Nathan's, not just the same type, identical markers across the board, the kind of match typically only seen between identical twins. The silence that followed seemed to stretch endlessly. Michael sank into the chair beside Nathan's bed, his expression stunned. "How is this possible?" he finally asked. "How could twins be separated at birth without anyone knowing?" Dr. Chen shook her head. "I don't have those answers, but I've contacted the ethics committee about the possibility of tissue typing to confirm the relationship. If they are indeed identical twins, Nathan's organs would be perfect matches for Oliver." Emma struggled to process this revelation. A nephew she'd never known existed. A piece of Ellie living in another family. Perhaps another victim of whatever conspiracy had claimed her parents' lives. Does this Oliver know? Do his parents know about any of this? "That's where things get complicated," Dr. Chen replied. "Oliver was adopted shortly after birth. His adoptive parents died in a car accident 3 years ago. He's currently a ward of the state, with a court-appointed guardian, managing his medical decisions." Nathan's hand found Emma's, squeezing with surprising strength. "See? I told you he was real, and he needs me, Aunt Emma. I need to help him." The ethical and logistical complexities of the situation were staggering, while Detective Whitaker worked with the FBI to piece together how a twin could have been essentially stolen at birth. Emma and Michael faced the immediate reality of Nathan's declining condition and his unwavering determination to help this newly discovered brother. Later that evening, after Nathan had finally drifted to sleep, Emma stood at the window, watching snowflakes swirl under the parking lot lights. Michael approached cautiously, maintaining the careful distance that had defined their interaction since the revelation of his connection to Ellie. "I should have told you sooner," he said quietly. "About Ellie, about our relationship. I have no excuse." Emma didn't turn from the window. "Why did you leave her?" Michael's reflection in the glass showed pain etched deeply into his features. "I didn't leave by choice. I was investigating Wilson's connection to organized crime for a book I was writing when I got too close. I received threats, explicit threats against Ellie if I didn't disappear." His voice cracked. "I thought I was protecting her by leaving. I never knew she was pregnant. By the time I circled back months later, she was gone, and no one knew where. She died thinking you abandoned her," Emma said, the words like shards of glass in her throat. "I know," Michael whispered. "That's a guilt I'll carry forever." Emma finally turned to face him. "And then you applied for a teaching position in Oakwood. Just coincidence?" "Not entirely," he admitted. "After years of searching, I traced Ellie's last known location to Oakwood. I came looking for closure, maybe forgiveness. I had no idea I'd find a son." The raw honesty in his voice pierced the armor of Emma's anger, not enough to fully forgive, not yet, but enough to acknowledge the complicated truth behind his choices. "Nathan doesn't have much time left," she said after a long silence. "Whatever happens with this Oliver situation, Nathan deserves to know his father during the days he has left." Michael's eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve that kindness." "It's not for you," Emma replied softly. "It's for him, and for Ellie." The following morning brought Dr. Chen and a hospital ethicist to Nathan's room, along with an older woman in a pressed suit who introduced herself as Patricia Winters, court-appointed guardian for Oliver Hayes. The formal tissue typing had confirmed what Nathan had somehow known. He and Oliver were identical twins, separated at birth through means still being investigated. "Oliver has been asking about Nathan," Ms. Winters explained, her expression grave. "Apparently he's been drawing pictures of a boy who looks just like him for months. He calls him his mirror." She glanced at Nathan, who listened with intense focus. "He's very ill, but he's asked repeatedly to meet Nathan if possible." Nathan's face lit with a fierce joy that Emma hadn't seen in weeks. "When can I see him? Is he here in the hospital?" "He's 2 floors down in oncology," Ms. Winters confirmed. "But I need to be clear about something. Oliver's condition is extremely fragile. His kidneys are failing and his liver function is compromised from the treatments. The doctors believe. She hesitated, looking to Dr. Chen for support. They believe he has weeks at most, Dr. Chen finished gently. Unless he receives transplants. The unspoken implication hung in the air. Nathan, also dying, could potentially save his twin, at least partially, at least temporarily, through organ donation. But such decisions carried enormous emotional and ethical weight, particularly for a child and his guardians. Nathan, however, showed none of the adult's hesitation. I want to meet him today, he stated firmly, and I want to give him what he needs. I already decided. Emma's throat tightened at her nephew's certainty, at the impossible choice that wasn't really a choice at all for him. How could the universe be so cruel, reuniting these separated brothers only when both face death? One child might be saved, but only through the loss of the other. A devastating equation with no truly happy solution. Let them meet, she finally said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions beneath. Let the brothers have that at least. The meeting between the twins unfolded with an otherworldly quality that left every adult in the room struggling to maintain composure. Oliver arrived in a wheelchair, oxygen tubes trailing from his nose, his frail body swallowed by a hospital gown identical to Nathan's. Despite the ravages of illness, the same hollowed cheeks, the same thinning hair, the same translucent pallor, their matching features were unmistakable. Identical brown eyes widened simultaneously as the boys regarded each other across the sterile hospital room. You're real, Oliver whispered, his Boston accent a subtle difference between otherwise mirror images. Nathan nodded, a smile transforming his face. I've been looking for you in my head for so long. Emma pressed her fingers to her lips, fighting back tears as the boys reached for each other with the intuitive certainty of twins who had never been allowed to know each other. They clasped hands, examining one another with frank curiosity, seemingly oblivious to the emotional upheaval their reunion created among the witnesses. They have the same birthmark, Michael murmured beside Emma, pointing to the identical small brown marks behind each boy's left ear. What are the odds? Dr. Chen, standing nearby with Ms. Winters, shook her head slightly. With identical twins, it's not about odds. They're literally made from the same cell, genetically identical in every way. The adults withdrew to the corridor, giving the boys privacy while remaining within view through the door's window. Emma watched as the twins talked animatedly, finishing each other's sentences, mirroring gestures they couldn't possibly have learned from each other. Against all rational explanation, they behaved like brothers who had grown up together rather than strangers meeting for the first time. Has the FBI made any progress understanding how this happened? Emma asked Detective Whitaker, who had arrived shortly before the meeting. How Oliver ended up separated from Nathan? The detective's weather-beaten face darkened. Wilson's organization was involved in numerous illegal activities, including black market adoptions. We've found evidence suggesting he arranged for one twin to be taken immediately after birth and placed with a family in his debt. The delivery nurse on duty that night recently confessed to being paid off. He hesitated, glancing at Michael. The working theory is that Wilson wanted to control both bloodlines with claims to the Thompson fortune. Michael's hands clenched at his sides. So he stole my son, separated identical twins, killed Emma and Ellie's parents, all for money. Money and power, Whitaker corrected grimly. The Thompson Trust is worth millions, but the real prize was controlling the legitimate business network William had built. Perfect for laundering operations. Inside the room, Nathan had produced a small notebook and was showing Oliver drawings, elaborate, sketches of the oak tree, the Thompson house, faces that could only be Ellie's, Emma's, Michael's. Oliver pointed excitedly at certain images, nodding as if confirming shared knowledge. Dr. Chen approached with a heavy folder tucked under her arm. We have the results of the comprehensive cross-matching, she said quietly. As expected, Nathan and Oliver are perfect matches for transplantation. Given their genetic identity, the risk of rejection is virtually non-existent. Emma struggled to find words. So if when Nathan, his organs could save Oliver. Not all his issues, Dr. Chen clarified gently. The brain tumor would eventually claim Oliver too, but Nathan's kidneys and a partial liver transplant could extend his life significantly, possibly long enough for new therapeutic approaches to be developed for the tumor itself. The ethical complexity was staggering. One child would die regardless. Nathan's condition had advanced beyond any intervention, but his death might grant his twin brother years of extended life, a chance their birth mother had been denied. Yet the emotional toll of discovering a twin only to lose him immediately seemed almost too cruel to bear. "Nathan's already decided," Michael said quietly, watching the boys through the window. "He knew somehow before any of us. That's why he's been so insistent about organ donation." Back in the room, the reunion continued with the twins now hunched over a chessboard someone had brought, their identical profiles bent in concentration. They played with a synchronicity that defied their separate upbringings, anticipating each other's moves, responding with mirror strategies, occasionally looking up to share a private smile of recognition. "They're communicating without words," Ms. Winters observed, her professional demeanor momentarily forgotten. "I've read about this with twins raised together, but never with one separated at birth." The meeting extended far beyond the brief window originally planned, with medical staff reluctantly agreeing that the positive impact on both boys' mental state outweighed concerns about fatigue. When they finally separated hours later, Nathan and Oliver clasped hands with a poignant finality that suggested they understood more about their shared fate than anyone had explicitly told them. "I'll see you soon," Nathan promised, as Oliver was wheeled back to his room. "We're going to fix you." The following days brought a flurry of medical consultations, ethical committee meetings, and legal proceedings. Nathan's condition declined rapidly, seizures increasing in frequency, periods of lucidity growing shorter. Despite his deterioration, he maintained absolute clarity about his wishes, formally signing organ donor documents with a shaky but determined hand. "I need you to understand something," he told Emma during one clear moment, grasping her fingers with surprising strength. "This isn't just me being brave or noble. This is what I want. I get to save part of myself this way." Emma stroked his forehead, now perpetually warm with fever. "You've always been braver than anyone I've known, Nathan. Just like your mother." "She knows," he whispered, eyes drifting toward the ceiling. "Mom knows what I'm doing. She's waiting for me, but she wants Oliver to stay longer." While Nathan's fate advanced with grim inevitability, Detective Whitaker's investigation gained momentum. James Wilson was apprehended attempting to flee the country, the evidence from William Thompson's hidden lockbox providing the foundation for numerous federal charges. During interrogation, faced with overwhelming documentation of his crimes, Wilson finally confessed to orchestrating the Thompson murders and the separation of the twins. He admitted the entire scheme, Whitaker reported during a brief visit to the hospital. William discovered financial irregularities just before the twins' 17th birthday. When he threatened to expose Wilson, Wilson arranged the hit, but he never found the evidence William had hidden. Emma's hand trembled around her coffee cup. And Ellie, was he responsible for what happened to her too? Whitaker hesitated, compassion softening his weathered features. "There's no evidence of foul play in Ellie's death. The complications she experienced during childbirth appear to have been tragic but natural." He paused before adding, "Wilson did admit to having the hospital watched, though, when he learned twin boys had been born. He saw another opportunity to control the Thompson legacy. He had connections at the hospital who helped falsify records, making it appear only one baby was delivered." The revelation that Ellie's death hadn't been part of Wilson's machinations provided cold comfort. Emma found herself standing before the hospital chapel altar that evening, tears flowing freely as she processed the decades of manipulation, theft, and violence that had shaped their family history. "I don't know if I believe in any of this anymore," she confessed to Michael, who had silently joined her in the small sanctuary. "What kind of God allows so much suffering for innocent children?" Michael didn't offer platitudes or theological arguments. Instead, he simply sat beside her, his own grief evident in the slump of his shoulders. "I keep thinking about what Nathan said, that Ellie knows what he's doing, that she's waiting for him." His voice caught. I never got to say goodbye to her. Never got to tell her I loved her, that I didn't abandon her by choice. She knew, Emma said suddenly, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. Deep down, she knew you wouldn't have left without reason. That's why she told me to find the box. She was still trying to solve the mystery, still trying to understand what happened to our parents and to you. She reached for Michael's hand, the first deliberate touch she'd initiated since learning his true identity. Nathan has your determination, and Ellie's heart. The legal wranglings surrounding Oliver's guardianship resolved with unexpected swiftness, the courts granting Emma temporary authority, given the extraordinary circumstances. With this final obstacle cleared, Nathan's remaining days took on an intense quality, each moment precious, each conversation weighted with significance as he divided his waning energy between Emma, Michael, and his newly discovered twin. I want to give Oliver something before... Nathan struggled to find the right words during a private moment with Emma before the operation. Something that's just from me, not my organs. From beneath his pillow, he withdrew their grandfather's pocket watch, a Thompson family heirloom Emma had given him on his 10th birthday. Will you make sure he gets this, so he knows he's a Thompson too, even if his last name is different? Emma took the watch, its gold case worn smooth by generations of Thompson fingers. I'll make sure, she promised, voice breaking. And I'll tell him all our family stories, all the things about you and your mom and our parents. He'll know everything about where he comes from. Nathan nodded, satisfied. There's one more thing. He pointed to a stack of sealed envelopes on his bedside table. Letters for you, for Dad, for Oliver, and for the other people who get my organs. I wrote them when I was feeling stronger. Can you make sure everyone gets theirs at the right time? The maturity of the request, this 11-year-old boy composing farewell letters, planning for a future he wouldn't see, threatened to shatter Emma's carefully maintained composure. Of course I will, she managed, gathering the envelopes with trembling hands. Nathan's eyes drifted closed, exhaustion claiming him mid-conversation as it increasingly did. But before sleep took him completely, he murmured, "It's okay to love, Dad, you know. Mom would want you to be happy." The final 48 hours of Nathan's life arrived with the quiet inevitability of tides. His medical team prepared for the complex logistics of organ donation while family members maintained a constant vigil at his bedside. During one of his last fully lucid periods, Nathan asked to speak with Michael alone, a request Emma honored, despite her reluctance to leave his side even momentarily. When she returned 15 minutes later, she found Michael openly weeping, clutching Nathan's hand as the boy spoke earnestly to his father. Neither shared the details of that conversation, but something had shifted between them. A peace found, a connection cemented despite the brevity of their relationship. On the final morning, Nathan asked to see Oliver one last time. The twins sat together in Nathan's room, identical heads bent close in whispered conversation that none of the adults could hear. When they finally separated, Oliver clutched the Thompson pocket watch in his palm, tears streaming unchecked down his hollow cheeks. "He's giving me some of his time," Oliver explained when Emma inquired about their conversation, "so I can have more of it." The medical team arrived shortly after, faces solemn as they prepared to move Nathan to the operating room. Emma had made the agonizing decision, at Nathan's insistent request, to authorize the organ retrieval while his heart still beat, a procedure that would, in essence, end his life to maximize the viability of his organs for his brother and other recipients. "It's time," Dr. Chen said gently, her normally clinical demeanor softened by weeks of witnessing the Thompson family's journey. "Does anyone need a few more minutes?" Nathan, though heavily medicated, shook his head with surprising clarity. "I'm ready," he whispered. "I know where I'm going." As the medical team prepared to wheel him from the room, Nathan reached for Emma's hand one final time. "Tell the story, Aunt Emma," he murmured. "Make sure people know about the lost twin who found his way home." The surgical team paused in the doorway, allowing Emma and Michael a final moment with the extraordinary boy who had changed their lives. Emma bent to kiss his forehead, whispering a promise that she would keep his memory alive always. Michael followed, pressing his lips to his son's forehead in a gesture of paternal love he'd discovered too late, but embraced completely. "My brave, brilliant boy," he whispered. "Thank you for finding me, even if just for a little while." As the stretcher rolled toward the elevator, Emma and Michael stood hand in hand in the doorway, watching until Nathan disappeared from view, carried toward the surgery that would end his life, but potentially save his brothers, the final chapter of a story that had begun with separation and would end with the most profound reconnection imaginable. The photograph, capturing the moment, became known throughout the Boston medical community, then beyond. 23 doctors and nurses lining the hospital corridor, heads bowed in profound respect as Nathan Thompson's body was wheeled from the operating room. The unusual tribute had not been planned or orchestrated. It emerged organically as the medical team, moved beyond professional detachment by the circumstances of their young patient's sacrifice, paused to honor him in the only way they could. Dr. Chen later explained to Emma and Michael what had happened in that operating room, how Nathan's heart had continued beating for a full 5 minutes after he was clinically declared brain dead, as if determined to sustain its rhythm until the surgical team was fully prepared to harvest his organs for transplant. "In 20 years of medicine," she said quietly, "I've never seen anything like it." Some of our most experienced surgeons were in tears. 2 years passed. The majestic oak tree behind the Thompson family home on Maple Street spread its branches against a brilliant October sky, leaves turning gold and crimson in the autumn light. Beneath its broad canopy, Emma sat on a newly installed wooden bench. 13-month-old Ellie balanced on her lap as she read from a colorful picture book. The toddler, with her mother's chestnut hair and her father's thoughtful blue eyes, patted the pages with chubby fingers, occasionally glancing up at the wind-stirred leaves overhead. Nearby, Michael and Oliver tossed a football back and forth. On the lawn, their movements careful and measured to accommodate Oliver's still recovering strength. At 13, the boy had the lanky, coltish build of early adolescence, his body finally catching up after years of illness had stunted his growth. The surgical scars beneath his t-shirt told the story of multiple transplants, Nathan's kidneys and part of his liver now functioning within his twin's body, granting him the time his brother had sacrificed his own life to provide. "He's getting stronger every day," Michael observed as he joined Emma on the bench, watching Oliver practice solitary throws against the side of the garage. "Dr. Chen says his latest lab work was the best yet." Emma nodded, shifting little Ellie to her other knee. "The anti-rejection meds are finally at a good level, and the scans show no new tumor growth." She didn't voice the unspoken reality that hovered at the edges of their cautious optimism, that Oliver's reprieve, while significant, remained temporary. The same aggressive brain tumor that had claimed Nathan would eventually resurface in his identical twin, but medicine advanced quickly, and every month, every year granted by Nathan's gift was precious beyond measure. The Thompson household had expanded and reconfigured in ways Emma could never have imagined that terrible winter 2 years earlier. With Wilson's financial empire dismantled and the family trust restored, Emma had gained legal guardianship of Oliver, bringing him into the home that was his birthright. Michael had moved in gradually, first temporarily during Oliver's recovery, then permanently as his relationship with Emma deepened from shared grief to tentative romance to committed partnership. Their daughter Ellie, named for the sister who connected them all, had arrived 9 months after a small private wedding ceremony held beneath the oak tree. "Mail came," Michael said, pulling several envelopes from his jacket pocket. "More letters from the recipients." Emma set aside the picture, book to take the envelopes, recognizing the now familiar letterhead of the organ donation network. In the weeks after Nathan's death, they had learned of the lives he had saved beyond his twin. A 7-year-old girl in Philadelphia who received his heart, a teenage boy in Rochester who received the remainder of his liver, a 4-year-old in Providence who received his corneas. Each recipient had received one of Nathan's carefully penned letters, along with their life-saving transplant. "I'll add them to his book," Emma said, tucking the envelopes into the diaper bag beside her. In the family living room, a leather-bound album contained every communication from Nathan's recipients, photographs, milestones, Heartfelt thanks from families who would never know the full story behind their second chance. Oliver jogged over, slightly winded but glowing with the simple pleasure of physical activity, a joy denied him through years of illness. "Can we visit Nathan before dinner?" he asked, reaching automatically to tickle little Ellie's chin, drawing giggles from his half-sister. The family made the visit monthly, a pilgrimage to the hillside cemetery, where Nathan rested beneath a simple headstone, inscribed with words he had chosen himself. "I found my mirror, and together we became whole." Today, as autumn leaves skittered across the manicured grounds, they stood together before the granite marker, adorned with fresh flowers from Nathan's classmates, who continued to remember him even as they advanced toward high school. "I made honor roll again," Oliver told the headstone, his fingers absently tracing the carved letters. "Just like you said I would." Emma watched this one-sided conversation with the familiar ache that never quite subsided. Oliver often spoke to Nathan this way, sharing achievements and disappointments as if his twin could hear. Perhaps, Emma sometimes thought, some part of him could. The part that lived on in Oliver's borrowed organs, the shared DNA that had once housed identical souls. The Thompson Foundation, established with the Restored Family Trust, had become a powerful force in pediatric medical research and support for families facing catastrophic childhood illness. The new Nathan Thompson wing at Boston Children's Hospital provided specialized care for young transplant patients, while a scholarship fund helped children like Oliver transition back to school after long medical absences. Emma managed the foundation, full-time now, finding purpose in transforming their family tragedy into a legacy of hope for others. Justice had come for the Thompson family, though the satisfaction remained bittersweet. James Wilson had died in prison 6 months into his 30-year sentence, a heart attack, according to official reports, though Detective Whitaker had hinted at less natural causes among the prison population, where child exploiters ranked lowest in the criminal hierarchy. His financial empire had crumbled, his political connections severed, his name now associated with one of the largest fraud and murder conspiracies in New England history. As twilight settled over the cemetery, Emma knelt to place a small, carved, wooden box beside the flowers at Nathan's grave, a creation from Oliver's woodshop class, painted with symbols meaningful to both boys: chess pieces, the oak tree, twin stars.